You're listening to a free podcast brought to you by Venue Cymru's International Concert Series. In March 2016, the BBC National Orchestra of Wales came to Venue Cymru to perform an all-French repertoire including Bizet's Carmen suite, the Flute Sonata by Poulenc, FAURÉ's Pavane, Delibes' Flower Duet, and RAVEL's Mother Goose suite. Before the concert, I was able to talk with Principal Conductor Sondergård and flute soloist Adam Walker.
Adam, if I could just ask you a question first. Your website says that you embrace all kinds of flute repertoire, and this is clearly the case. But do you find that you enjoy certain types of repertoire over others?
I mean, obviously, it kind of depends on my mood.
Yeah.
And who I'm performing with and all these things. But in general, no, I like it all. I think the thing is, obviously, not being a pianist or a violinist, we don't have the kind of the big meaty stuff like Tchaikovsky and Brahms, and apart from in the orchestra we do. So the solo and chamber music stuff that we do have is very much either ends of time scale really. So the more that you can embrace, the better, and the more fun you can have. I have to say though, I do genuinely really love kind of Baroque stuff and contemporary stuff and everything. So I'm lucky in that respect.
Yeah. And we're seeing you both on stage today. I just wondered, this is a question for you both, what the relationship was like between conductor and soloist when you approach a piece like the Poulenc or a concerto.
We start with a fight, don't we?
We start with a fight.
Like this. Who's strongest? It's, of course, you want to start off on the right foot. And often, actually, I don't know if you find that, often we don't even play, or I shouldn't say we, but I don't even ask for anything to be played, or because sometimes you just kind of know. And if it is a concerto or a soloist that I've worked with before, sometimes I just ring them up or write an email. Do you want it? Are you doing it differently than you've done on your recent recording or something like that? You know, because nowadays it's easy to find a recording of things. Now, of course, you can ask yourself. Now you have the chance to do something different than the recording. But that's why I ask, because I would like to do something different. It's not that, but if I'm gonna meet a soloist that say, you know, I arrive very late, can we just go straight on in the rehearsal? Sometimes that's better for many people.
Yeah.
But in this case, we met and we didn't fight, so we get along really well. So that's lovely. Yeah.
Regarding the Poulenc, Adam, this work was originally written for piano and flute, is that right? But obviously today we're hearing the Berkeley orchestrated version. How different is it from your perspective, having the orchestra?
It's funny, in ways it is very different. I mean, it's a piece that all flute players have played to death. Many recitals you end up playing it because it's one of the most popular pieces that we have, and actually it's one of the best pieces that we have. But this is my first time playing it in this arrangement with orchestra. I was a little bit apprehensive about certain things, whether I'm going to have to alter the sound, that kind of thing. Mostly, I'd say Berkeley's done a really good job of enhancing what was already there in the piano part and making it just stronger, like certain colours and harmonies are much more vivid with the orchestra. So on the whole, I'd say actually it works really well, and it's a real pleasure, and it doesn't feel too alienating doing it with orchestra. So no, I think he did a really good job.
And when you approach a piece that is so well known among flautists, do you try to look at it afresh? Do you just go to the score and say, well, this is going to be an independent kind of view? How do you approach that?
I was quite lucky with this piece in that a lot of people play this piece when they're kind of young and doing their grade 8 or whatever. I only got as far as my grade 5. And actually for some reason I just missed this piece off when I was kind of, you know, pre-college age, which I'm quite glad of because I came to it a little bit late. I mean, I was still young when I came to it, but old enough to have a kind of more grown-up perspective of the piece. And I'm glad of that, because sometimes a piece that you play to death when you're a kind of precocious teenager gets a bit after a while. So I'm quite glad of that. I think because it is such a good piece of music, one doesn't have to try too hard to find new things. It's, when a piece is of good quality, you'll discover new things naturally anyway. So I'm yet to be tired of playing it, which is good.
It's good.
Yeah.
Thomas, you've been principal conductor with BBC now for a few years. How deep is the relationship between a principal conductor and their orchestra?
Well, you could say, I mean, the great thing about that event, having a title like that, is to come back to the same amount of musicians that you know well.
Yeah.
Now, the challenge is to find exactly the right amount, I found, because you can easily get to see each other too much.
Yeah.
And as I've been on the other side for many years, I know that no matter if you're called a bardo or someone that we don't know the name of yet, I mean, you can get enough of people.
Yeah.
And to be a musician on that side, you just want different inspirations all the time. And it needs to balance. It's really important that you can work with the band without, talking too much. And therefore it's good that you see each other quite regularly. Yeah. And then also the good thing about, a tour like this, I'm really glad that we do together, because we get to see you, and we hopefully get together in a different way. And if you're happy together, I mean, there must be investigations on this, that then you just play better as well. I was just talking to one of the string players, and she said she's had such a wonderful weekend. Both in terms of the repertoire that we're playing, but also it's been so nice this time. The weather has been really with us. I've seen Snowdon the first time. And I just love it. The scenery here is so different from where I come from, it's lovely.
And presumably you can form a social relationship with these people. You go.
Not so much me. That's another story. Some musicians, in general, it's just good not to get too close, because you need to be able to work with each other. But of course, the management I keep in very close contact to, because we have meetings every time I'm with the BBC now. But it's not that I don't want to, but I just think it's better to keep a professional relationship with the musicians, because then we do our job better, simply. And that's why we're there. Yeah.
Another question for the both of you. You do an awful lot, and a lot of different things, especially when you're on tour, perhaps, but normally as well. You're juggling, performing, rehearsing, doing interviews like this, workshops like you were yesterday in Bangor. And then on top of that, you have to find the time to practice and prepare scores and plan rehearsals and for everything that's up and coming. How do you manage your time? How do you manage to do all that and still not faint with the stress or something?
We're all a little bit on the spectrum, musicians. So I think we kind of, you find a rhythm and you adapt. I mean, if you have this kind of lifestyle, I think you have to be fairly adaptable as well. So it's all about finding the right balance of going with how you feel, how prioritizing and being realistic. Quite often, the thing that you don't see from the audience perspective is you don't know how well the people, you hope and presume that they're 100% well prepared and everything, and there's nothing awful going on in their personal life and everything's wonderful on stage, but you never know. And it's our job, regardless of how much time we've had or how jet lagged we are or whatever, to give as good a performance as we can. I think that's, if you have a touring lifestyle, that's one of the main things. It's just when you're on the stage, being able to give everything that you have.
Yeah.
And I think the joy of actually making music, I mean, don't forget that most of us, as far as I know, it's not easy when we are kids, that our parents are maybe not so sure that it's the most secure job to go into. And it's all depending on where you come from. I mean, my mum was very supportive. Well, both my parents was. Maybe because they got a clear signal from the teacher that he thought that I was really very good at playing the percussion. But still they were worried, because how is the life for kids going to be? And that somehow travels with us our whole life. That's what I mean about it. So when we actually are, exhausted or jet lagged, as you say, then when we get up there and do it, it's all to do with that whole journey that we've done since we were a kid. Well, in my case, definitely, that I enjoy the music so much and to be a part of it. So actually, even if you're really, really tired, within a few minutes, just the joy of actually making that music, it does something to your system. I mean, a few times I've done opera, and before going on stage, I just think, or in the pit, I'm gonna faint, as you say, because I'm so tired. But no, within 10 minutes you are alert and on top of things, and it's partly to do with that we have to be that, but also that the music brings so much joy for me, and the drama in this case on stage, and so. And we're doing something right now together that we all really enjoy. And it's not easy to get there, if you know what I mean. That's what I meant in the beginning by saying that it's not given that we all get a job as a musician. And nowadays it's not looking so great for classical music, you know, unless you're Norwegian. Up there they build concert hall and they open new orchestras. It's the oil.
But you mentioned your background as a percussionist. You started out as a percussionist, is that right?
Yeah. To put it really, I don't think it was a city much bigger than this that I came from, but the music school was extraordinary. There was a character in that music school that, now I see it when I'm growing up, he wanted so many other things in life. He couldn't get it. Then he went back to where he came from and built everything, made his boys and his girls do what he couldn't do. And that was his mission in life. So therefore we were like a handful of really good percussion players from that little city. And he managed to get all sorts of instruments that they didn't have in any academy in Scandinavia. And this is a music school. So he was a businessman as well as so many other things. So that's simply because that was so known in that little city. Then as a kid, you just turn to whatever you've heard on the street, or people say, oh, the music school, and you should go to the percussion, and that's really good. So you just go there. I was 7, and I started to bang things. But I was never really terribly interested in it, in that sense. What I realized that I really liked was the part that the percussion took in the orchestral repertoire. And then later I find out that conducting was interesting, but I just wanted to be a part of it.
Adam, you're playing the Poulenc today with an orchestra, and you played Hugh Watkins' flute concerto in Bangor on Friday night. When you play the same piece with a different orchestra, how much can that change the performance?
That's not really something I've thought about that often. I think often even performances can change with the same orchestra on different occasions as well. I think it depends on the hall and all manner of things, really. Yeah, it can change quite a lot. Yeah, I've done the Hugh Watkins with several different orchestras now. Funnily enough, it like we were discussing about the score after the concert, and Thomas was saying how certain things maybe need to be adjusted slightly, and actually those things have happened at each time I played it. But no, I mean, it just depends on the circumstances of the performance.
And we will have a few, well, hopefully a lot of young musicians listening to this, ultimately. I just wondered if either of you had any advice for young musicians.
I would say I more have advice for the grown-ups to embrace the kids more and make sure that we don't make this a secret. But though I must also say that I think maybe it's important. Many people talk so much about making the halls the events of classical music. This is my English. Forgive me if it's a wrong kind of phrase, but to bring it down to daily life, meaning that we should just perform it anywhere, in any kind of clothes and at any time of the day. But I think there's something wonderful about dressing up, go on stage and make the event a little sacred. Would you say sacred? Not really this, but just, because it is something quite extraordinary to be able to go in and listen to a classical piece that maybe not always sounds as good as if when you have your headphones or great speakers, but that we together in an event and celebrate that we love this music and it's live performed for us. Yeah. So, but to come back to your question, I think to show the kids that this music has some depth, maybe not try to explain them because that's also hard, but just bring them to the hall. Yeah. And then if it's there within them, they will discover it, they will hear it, no doubt.
Yeah. And you've tapped into something very relevant to specifically here, because this area, I think, is faced with the problem of not attracting enough younger people to experience, as you say, that the live brilliance of a classical music performance is very relevant and that we need to work on. I'm sure that's the case in other places as well.
But for the kids, I mean, if there's a little, if they give the kids the opportunity to come to places like that, and also dare to take the chance to put them to music schools or to events, or when you're on holiday with the kids, show them a concert, or if it's a chamber music concert or something like that. And then I think if they're really eager, they will find their way to find the right teachers. And
I think you're right as well. If the opportunities are presented to them, and then it's their thing, as opposed to if it's a pushy parent who's decided they want their child to be the next greatest whatever, and kind of force them to go. It doesn't become. It's nicer if when people are growing up, like we're faced with so much pop music and stuff in the media, and young people discover that for themselves, not from their parents making them listen to Little Mix or this or that or whatever. So if there's enough opportunity for them to discover classical music, even just in school, it's something for them to find for themselves. I think quite a lot of the kids, because I was at a specialist music school at Chetham's in Manchester, a lot of the people who I knew then with pushy parents have kind of not gone on to do music. They all kind of rebelled against it. But lots of people who had a passion but never really got given the opportunity because they weren't enough. It's interesting.
Are there any other questions from the audience?
I do have one question. Who chooses repertoire? You mentioned earlier about being the orchestra being very happy this weekend, they're happy with the repertoire. And obviously you've got several repertoires because you're not playing the same each venue. But who actually chooses? You, the orchestra? The management?
We sit down, the producer and I sit down and talk about what we think would be suitable, and also of course of Soloist, and so that's the orchestra and me that sits down and talk about that. Yeah.
Yes.
You talked about getting to know an orchestra and learning to work with them, but what's it like when you meet a new orchestra? Is it a scary experience or something highly stimulating?
It's a mixture. It really is a mixture. And actually, as you said, when you said you must be exhausted, when I started to conduct, I did a rehearsal of 3 hours and I could sleep as many hours as I rehearsed right after that, because it just took so much energy from me, because you're so aware and so questioning everything that you're doing. When you get into a routine, now what's tricky also about making music is the routine. You always need to observe the routine. Is it for good or is it for bad? And routine I also get routine in meeting new orchestras a lot. But I need to observe what that routine is for. Is it good or bad? So when I meet an orchestra, I'm of course very aware how I rehearse within the first few minutes, because again, I've been there myself. And if you want or not, you actually judge and know within very little time if this is going to be a week that you will enjoy or not.
I play a lot of chamber music.
Oh yeah.
And if you play with somebody new, you do know quite quickly whether you're going to get on musically with that person or not. But
then of course, as a grown-up, you must think, yes, that's the first instinct, but let's just calm down and see if things can develop, because we're all different.
Yes.
And new conductors can just throw off that little nervosity, and then it'll be okay, But it is quite stressful. But I try not to think too much about it. because the music, after all, is what we need to focus on. But sometimes it's not easy.
Any other questions, quickly?
It's just about French music. I mean, it is fairly distinctive, do you think? And I mean, if you listen to some music, and you might sort of almost say, oh, that comes from that country, or that comes from another country. Do you think that French music is distinctive in that sense?
Well, I think if any, maybe French music is.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't know, I don't want to be, I mean, I'm from Scandinavia, but the way that we look at the Mediterranean countries is, which we just love the sun and so much. And I think you can tell that in the whole way that they live their lives, the language, I think. We don't have that strong relationship with France as you have over here. It's a little bit more, as we've not really been to war with them in the same way that you have. But the Germans, maybe we could be a little similar with here, where that's somehow, I don't know. I think it's very clear when French inspiration has come into other composers as well. So not only if I listen to Debussy or Poulenc or Milhaud, I think it's really clear when other composers has been inspired by French music, or not even French music, but poetry, and I just love it down there. Also in Italy, I think it's so beautiful.
The harmonic structure of the writing of the music, I mean, what gives it that sort of flavour, do you think?
Yeah, it's to do with the harmonic scales that they use a lot, but it's maybe mostly to do with orchestration, I think, and shapes, forms. Like Poulenc is very, very special. He's a little bit like Prokofiev in the way that he has a phrase and then he just adds 2 commas, like an extra little bar that came from an idea earlier on, and it doesn't really fall into shape with a 4 bar, but that doesn't matter. Why should it? So that's very Poulenc. I mean, if you listen to his operas, also the text is so well composed to the music, but it is as when we talk, but not. And then there's a little extra sentence in a different tonality, and this piece is full with this, actually. There's a little tale of the same story, double tale, which is very Poulenc, I think. Maybe not so much French, but...
I think we have to let you go and get ready for the concert.
That's right.
It's been an absolute pleasure being able to talk to you today, so thank you both very much for taking the time.
Thank you.
That was Principal Conductor of the BBC National Orchestra of Wales, Thomas Sndergrd, and flute soloist Adam Walker. For more information about the International Concert Series and to listen to our other pre-concert talks, please visit our website at www.venuecymru.co.uk. Thanks for listening.